Thanks a lot. Matthew Lee, Inner City Press, and thanks for all these previous answers. I wanted to, I guess, go at it a different way. You'd mentioned the Myanmar and the Rohingya and Cox's Bazar, and so I just wanted to ask you, it seems like one of the issues is sort of the overall sort of purpose of UNRWA, or sort of having a separate agency for this one ongoing refugee crisis. Could you, if you were today to look at the plight of the Rohingya that have fled Myanmar, that seem to be, there's some intractable issues, what would be the benefit of setting up a separate UN agency for the Rohingya, as opposed to dealing with the issue through UNHCR or other agencies? Do you see a benefit to that? Not that you can undo what this current situation is, but can you sort of contrast the benefits of a crisis-specific agency as opposed to using the UN's usual panoply of agencies? Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I think the first thing that would come to my mind would be that I would hope that, and I think this is very much a message that comes from the Secretary General as well, that among the, what you call the panoply of options open to the United Nations and to member states and to the state community, there would be a much greater belief, and here I really have to underline belief and commitment to political conflict resolution. One of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in the Middle East is we have seen a very, almost an irresistible temptation by the international community to engage in conflict management. And I can assure you, we are a very clear example of what happens when you do conflict management. You can do conflict management forever and you get 70 years of UNRWA, but you'll get 70 years of everybody else as well. And I can assure you also that nobody in UNRWA, starting with me, has any intention of seeing UNRWA be here for another 70 years. But because our mandate is so intimately connected and tied to the achievement of a just and lasting solution and a conflict resolution in the Middle East, we have to accept that that hasn't been particularly successful, and therefore our ongoing existence is there. Now, the rest of your question is, of course, largely, in a sense, covered by the fact that in historical terms, we were created before UNHCR was created. Nobody can say today what would have happened had UNHCR been created first. And I think today it is clear that for refugee situations around the world, UNHCR is the primary actor with a mandated responsibility to cover those situations in partnership with many NGOs and others. And UNRWA remains with its historic mandate, and that we are very determined to implement. I think the one thing I can say that is unique and uniquely successful, I mean, there were many things I would love to tell you about because I feel very passionate about it, but let me focus on education. I think there is just no other example, not even in current, very advanced refugee responses. And with this, I really, again, do not wish to comment on anybody else's work, but just to highlight the extraordinary vision that led from the very start UNRWA to engage in education. Because when you deal with refugees, or for that matter, victims of armed conflict around the world, and you distribute food or provide emergency medical activities and other things that come to mind, what you're doing is you're looking at people as victims. When you invest in education, you're also looking at them as actors of their own destiny, potentially, preserving their opportunities, their skills and capacities. Over 2 million Palestinians have graduated from UNRWA schools since the 1950s. Imagine what an investment that is. Probably one of the most advanced human development projects in the Middle East in any sense, and something that the World Bank, referring to our education system, calls a global public good. So that is something that is definitely there, and I'm sure, if we had the means, which we don't have now, that would actually be of great value for the international community to mobilize some of our teachers for responses to education situations in other refugee contexts. I have no doubt that many of UNRWA staff would be extremely proud to contribute to responses elsewhere in the world. We're not there yet, and we're currently in the battle to keep our own schools open, but certainly that is one of the great lessons learned of this organization.